Hare Krishna. So I heartily welcome each and every one of you in Nrsimhani Rajanam, the study of 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Let us begin with Mangalacharan. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin iti namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Vagisha Yasya Vadane Lakshmir Yasya Cha Vakshasi Yasya Te Hridaye Samved Tam Nrisimhamaham Bhaje Ekena Chakramaparena Karena Shankham Anyena Sindhutanayam Avalambya Tishtan Vametarena Varada Bhaya Padma Chihnam Lakshmi Nrisimhamadehi Karavalambam Ukram Viram Mahavishnum Jvalantam Sarvato Mukham Nrisimham Bhishanam Bhadram Mrityam Mrityor Namamyaham Prahlada Narada Parashara Pundarika Vyasadi Bhagavata Pungavahrin Nivasa Bhaktanurukta Paripalana Parijata Lakshmi Nrisimhamadehi Karavalambam Padau Yadiyau Prathama Dvitiyau Tritiya Turyau Katitau Yaduru Nabhistada Panchama Eva Sashto Bhujantaram Yoryugalam Tatanyo Kanthasturajan Navamo Yadiyo Mukharavindam Dashamam Prapullam Ekadasho Yasya Lalatapartam Shiropi Tutva Dasha Eva Bhati Tamadidevam Karunanidhanam Tamalavarnam Suhitavataram Apara Samsara Samudra Setam Bhajamahe Bhagavata Swarupam Bhajamahe Bhagavata Swarupam Om Ajnanatimirantasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachanam pangum langayate girim yat kripatamaham bande Shri Guru Dinatarina. Hare Krishna. So I welcome all once again to the discussion on the 7th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam as a part of our Nrsimhani Rajanam program. So today we shall resume the second half of the second chapter of 7th canto, Hiranyakashipu, king of the demons. Today, let us just briefly revise what we had discussed so far. The first chapter had begun with a question to Shukadev Goswami by Parikshit Maharaj. What was the question? Although the Supreme Lord is equal to everyone, why does it appear that he becomes partial? Why is it that he becomes partial sometimes? Then Shukadev Goswami illustrates, he explains to Parikshit Maharaj how the Lord is beyond the three modes of material nature. and the Lord does not have a material body. Therefore, the Lord is not subjected to dualities, and therefore he is not partial. And in this regard, he also narrates Yudhishthira Maharaj's question to Narada Muni during the Rajasva Yajna. So what were the questions asked by Yudhishthira Maharaj? Let us briefly revise them. The first question which was asked by Yudhishthira Maharaj was, how come Shishupala, a person who is constantly envious of the Supreme Lord, who is constantly blaspheming the Supreme Lord, how come such a person got liberation? And what is this mercy of a Lord that such an envious person also gets liberation? So this was his first question. Then Narada Muni goes on to explain to him how Shishupal actually was constantly absorbed, constantly meditating, constantly thinking on the form of the Supreme Lord. Although with envious feeling, but still he was thinking of the form of the Supreme Lord. He also goes to tell who Shishupal was. Shishupal and Dantavakra, the two brothers, were none other than Jaya and Vijaya, the eternal associates of the Lord in the spiritual world, who were actually cursed. Then Yudhishthira Maharaj's next question was, when they were, if they are eternal associates of the Supreme Lord, how was it that they were actually cursed by the Brahmanas? And what was the curse? And why were they cursed? How come they were cursed? They are associates, eternal associates of the Lord. How could they fall down into this material world, and how they were cursed? Then Narada Muni recites how they were cursed. And then this is the third question of this whole chapter. And finally, Narada Muni also explains how Jaya and Vijaya took different births in this material world, as Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, Ravana and Kumbhakarna, and Shishupala and Dantavakra. And now Parikshit Maharaj's question was how Hiranyakashipu became very inimical to his great devotees and Prahalad, and how did Prahalad become a great devotee of the Supreme Lord? And then Narada Muni goes on to tell how Hiranyaksha was killed by Varaha, and how Hiranyakashipu, the king of the demons, how he actually was very upset. He was very upset and he was greatly lamenting the death of his brother, and how he actually planned to avenge his brother's killing by the Supreme Lord. So yesterday we had seen many aspects. We have seen how Hiranyakashipu felt that the Lord is actually partial, and how Hiranyakashipu felt that the Lord has sided the devotees, just like a restless child leans to, restless child leans towards something which is very appealing to him. So in a similar way, he felt that although the Supreme Lord is actually impartial, he is equally disposed to everyone, because of the demigods' prayers, and because he has been lured by the demigods, he has become partial. This was his feeling. So after having such a feeling, what did he do? He summoned all his associates and he conveyed his intention of killing the Supreme Lord Vishnu. And by killing the Supreme Lord Vishnu, he felt that the demigods, for whom Lord Vishnu is the only shelter, for whom Vishnu is the soul and shelter, so they will become very weak. And similarly, he instructed his associates to go and destroy the Brahminical culture present all over, so that the demigods will be deprived of their yajnas. In this way, from both sides, he wanted to cause harm to the demigods, because he felt that the demigods are his enemies, and Lord Vishnu, he has sided the demigods, and therefore he has also become his enemy. And after this, what happens? Hiranyakashipu now, after instructing his associates, he goes to his relatives. Who are his relatives? His relatives are Diti, his mother, and Rishabhanu, his sister-in-law, and the sons of his sister-in-law, his nephews, and he goes and consoles them. And then he begins telling one story. That story we are going to see today. Yes, we had completed until 31 verses yesterday. Rudatya Uchchairdaitangri Pankajam Chinchantya Ashraikuta Kunkumaruni Vishrastakesha Bharanashu Chamrina Trijantya Akrandanaya Vilipire. So as the king, as the queens loudly cried, their tears glided down their breasts, becoming reddened by the kumkum powder, and fell upon the lotus feet of their husband. Their hair became disarrayed, their ornaments fell, and in a way that evoked sympathy from the hearts of others, the queens began to lament their husband's death. Now, this is a story which is told by Hiranyakashipu. This story is told by Hiranyakashipu to his relatives who were mourning the death of Hiranyaksha. So he's telling one story in order to comfort them, in order to console them, condole them. Now let us see. Now in this story, what happens? There was a king called Suyagnya, and he is killed in a battle, and all his wives or all the queens are loudly crying, and their tears are gliding down the lotus feet of their husband. Their hair has become disarrayed and their ornaments fell, and in this way the queens, when they were mourning, actually evoked the sympathy from the hearts of others. Aho vidatra karunena na prabho bhavan pranito drigagocharam dasham ushinaranam ashivritti dappura krito dhuna yena shucham vivartana. So the queens are crying like this: "Oh Lord, you have now been removed by cruel providence to a state beyond our sight. You had previously sustained the livelihood of the inhabitants of Kushinara, and thus they were happy. But your condition now is the cause of their unhappiness." So look at the queen's conception. Of course, having affection towards a husband is not wrong. Mourning the death of husband is not wrong. But look at the conception. What is the conception which they are having? They are saying, you had previously sustained the livelihood of inhabitants of Kushinara. So they were thinking that he is the person who is actually sustaining. But now your condition is the cause of their unhappiness. But now you are not here. But who is the actual sustainer? The Supreme Lord is the sustainer. King is only a post. The king acts on behalf of the Supreme Lord under the guidance of the Brahmanas. But he is not the ultimate sustainer or the ultimate provider for anyone. Neither is any leader, nor is any leader in the sense could be anyone. Who is ultimately providing and who is ultimately maintaining each and every living entity? It is the Supreme Lord, not anyone else. And all others are just instruments of the Supreme Lord. Of course, the instrument is also important. It is not that one should be careless of this fact, but then one must be aware. One must know that the maintenance is ultimately carried out by the Supreme Lord. Sarva Karana Karanam. He is the person who is actually maintaining the Srishti. He is maintaining each and every living entity. It is not anyone else. Somebody may be empowered to maintain someone, but who is the ultimate sustainer, ultimate maintainer? It's the Supreme Lord. But it appears that the queens here, they are not aware of this fact. That is why they are claiming that he was the sustainer, but now he is dead, and therefore they are all unhappy. Tvaya kritajnena vayam mahipate katam vinashyama suhrittamenate tatranuyanam tava virapadayo sushrusatinam dishayatrayasyasi. So they are telling, O king, O hero, you are a very grateful husband and the most sincere friend of all of us. How shall we exist without you? O hero, wherever you are going, please direct us so that we may follow in your footsteps and engage again in your service. Let us go along with you. So these are very sincere feelings expressed by very faithful and chaste wife when the husband is no more. They are saying, how shall we exist without you? So wherever you are going, please direct us there so that we may follow in your footsteps. So there is one very important thing to understand here. What is the system of Sahamarana or Sati? So this is actually a Vedic system. So three things let us understand. What is Sahamarana or Sati? And why was this Sahamarana practiced? And why was it misunderstood subsequently as a social evil? The Sahamarana or Sati was actually practiced in the Vedic system, particularly by those, particularly by that section of the society See, in the Vedic system, a man, or particularly the men of higher classes, were allowed to marry more than one woman. And generally, this system was practiced, particularly when, a man has many wives. So what happens is one wife enters into the funeral pyre along with the husband. Or sometimes if a man is married to a woman and the man passes away when the woman does not have any children, then the woman again goes and she joins the husband in the funeral pyre. And why was this practiced? Why was this Sahamarana practiced? It is because the women had lot of loyalty and chastity towards their husband. They had extreme loyalty and chastity towards their husband that they could not imagine a life without their husbands. This was the Vedic tradition, and that is why this was practiced. But subsequently, what happened is many sections of people started imposing this. It was again voluntary. It was not imposed on the women by anyone to enter into the funeral pyre. It was voluntary. It was up to them. But many of them did. Some of them did not. Most of them did, and it was practiced. But subsequently, what happened is many people began imposing this thing on the women. And finally, it was misunderstood to be a social evil. In fact, it is not a social evil. It was practiced voluntarily by certain women. When the husband actually dies, they also enter into the funeral pyre along with the husband. If you see Mahabharata, when Maharaj Pandu died, the queens, he had two wives, Kunti and Madri. So Madri decided to enter into the funeral pyre, and Kunti decided to take care of all the 5 sons, including the 2 sons of Madri. So subsequently, it was being imposed, and due to many reasons, it was misunderstood to be a social evil. But in fact, it was practiced in the Vedic system with a very good intention because of the extreme chastity and loyalty of a woman towards her husband. Evam vilapati nam vai parigrhyamritam patim anichati nam nirharam arkostam sanyavartata. The time appropriate for the body to be burned had come. The time was appropriate for the body to be burned, but the queens, not allowing the body to be taken away, continued lamenting for the dead body, which they kept on their laps. In the meantime, sun completed its movements for setting in the west. So there is a tradition, as per the Vedic tradition, if a person's death happens in the morning, then his body has to be cremated by sunset. And in case the person's death happens during or after sunset or in the evening time, it should be cremated at least before the next day's sunrise or during, the next day's sunrise. It should not be kept for more than that. So similarly, the time had come for the king's body to be burned, but the queens did not allow the body to be taken away, and they continued lamenting. So what is the reason for this attachment to one's body or to the extended body? It is nothing but the strong grip of illusion. And what is that illusion? That illusion is to think that I am this body. That illusion is to misidentify the body, soul with the body. This is the illusion which we have been seeing for the past many days. The main reason is the conditioned soul, when he identifies himself with the body, when he either the gross body or the subtle body. If he identifies himself with the gross body or when he identifies himself with the subtle body, that means what? He is identifying himself with something which he is actually not. And that is called illusion. For example, another example can be given here. When we are going in a desert or even in the normal streets, when we are going on a very hot summer day, when we are going on a road, suddenly it appears that there is a pool of water on the road, right? When we see from a distance, how can such water pool come on a road, on a tar road particularly? But immediately when we go near, we see that there is no water or no pool. It is actually a mirage. So it is it is just a mirage which happens due to a particular type of reflection of the light. So this is illusion from A distance, it appears that the water is there. But when we go near it, it appears normal again. So the strong grip of illusion, the misidentification of the soul with the subtle or the gross body is a similar type of illusion, or it's called as moha. Nirmana moha nijita sanga dosha, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So one can take to spiritual life, one can take to devotional life. The primary process is one must understand that one is different from the body. Nirmana moha jitasanga dosha. One should understand that one is actually completely different from the body. One is the spirit soul. So the queens did not want to deliver the dead body for burning because they were afraid. Another reason is given by our acharyas. The queens were also afraid of dying with the dead body of their husband. As a custom they had to do, but not only they were identifying themselves with the body, because they were identifying themselves with the body, they are identifying everything related to body with themselves. So therefore, they could not understand how they could exist. They could not understand what is their goal now. They could not understand what is their purpose now. Everything looked like it was all over. And they were also afraid of dying with the dead body of the husband. When they are alive, it's not very easy to enter the fire. It's a very difficult thing, although it was a custom or it was done voluntarily by some section, but ultimately it is very, very fearful for the normal body to directly enter into the fire. Tatraha preta bandhunam ashrutya paridevitam ahatan balako bhutva yamasvayam upagataha. So when the queens were lamenting like this for the dead body of the king, their loud cries were heard even from the abode of Yamaraj. Assuming the body of a boy, a small boy, Yamaraj personally approached the relatives of the dead body and advised them as follows. Now, why did Yamaraj take the form of a small boy? Why did he assume the body of a small boy? It is because a small child is actually permitted everywhere. He can go anywhere. And generally, when an elderly man speaks philosophy, not many are interested in that. But when a small child speaks philosophy, or a very young boy speaks philosophy, most of the people become very interested to hear that. So therefore, Yamaraj, out of his compassion, he wanted to actually be heard by the wives of the king or the queens. So therefore, he assumed the body of a boy so that they could be receptive to him. So that's the reasons are given here. Everyone is interested. People are generally very interested to hear a child speak philosophy. When a child speaks philosophy, generally people are very happy and inspired and they become very receptive. So now Yamaraj said in the form of a boy, Aho amisham vayasadhikanam vipashyatam loka vidim vimoha yatragatasthatra gatam manushyam swayam sadharma apiso chantyapartham. So Sri Yamaraj said, alas, how amazing it is. These persons who are older than me, Aho amisham vayasadhikanam. These persons who are older to me, vayasadhikanam, who are older in terms of the age, have full experience that hundreds and thousands of living entities have taken birth and died. Vipashyatam, they have seen lokavidim vimoha, they have seen the nature's law, they have had full experience that hundreds and thousands of living entities have taken birth and died. Thus, they should understand that they are also apt to die. Still, they are bewildered. How amazing is this? Despite all these queens being much elder to me, despite they having experience, loka vidim moha, loka vidim vimoha. Vimoha is they are completely bewildered despite having experience of loka vidim or the nature's laws. Thus, they should understand that they are also apt to die, but still they are bewildered. The conditioned soul comes from an unknown place and returns after death to that same unknown place. There is no exception to this rule which is conducted by material nature. Knowing this, Why do they uselessly lament? Swayam sadharma apisochantyapārtham. Why are they lamenting uselessly? Although they have full experience, although they have seen thousands of living entities taken birth and died, why are they uselessly lamenting like this? This was what Yamaraj said. Aho vayam dhanyatamaya datra tyakta pitribhyam na vichintayama abhakshyamana abala vrikadibi sarakshita rakshati yohi garbhe. So he says here, it is wonderful that these elderly women do not have a higher sense of life than we do. Aho vayam dhan yatamaya datra tyakta pitribhyam na vichintayama abhakshyama abala adibi sarakshita rakshati yohi garbhe. See, it's wonderful that these elderly women are not even having higher sense of life than boys like me do. Indeed, we are most fortunate. For although we are children and have been left to struggle in material life unprotected by father and mother, and although we are very weak, we have not been vanquished or eaten by ferocious animals. Thus, firm belief. What is the Supreme Lord who has given us protection even in the womb will surely protect us everywhere. Sarakshita rakshitiyohi garbhe. Mana amalavrikadibi sarakshita rakshati. So he's saying like this. It is wonderful that these elderly women do not have a higher sense of life. Indeed, we are most fortunate. For although we are children and have been left to struggle, unprotected by father and mother, and although we are very weak, somehow we have not been vanquished and somehow we are protected. Thus, we have a firm belief. Sarakshita rakshatiyohi garbhe. We have a firm belief that the Supreme Lord who has given us protection even in the womb of the mother will protect us everywhere. This firm belief is there in us. So, there are some important points to know here. It is said in Haribhakti Vilas, Anukulyasya sankalpaha pratikulyasya varjanam rakshishyatiti vishwaso goptritve varanam tata atmanikshepa karpanye shadvida sharanagati. So he is saying here that he has a firm belief, children like him have a firm belief that Supreme Lord is giving protection, even in the womb he is giving protection. Definitely he is going to give protection even before we come out of the womb of the mother, he is giving protection. So therefore he will definitely protect us everywhere. So one must have this strong faith. So this is called surrender. So the 6 aspects of surrender are mentioned in Haribhakti Vilas. One must know what those 6 aspects are. We can discuss it in detail in some other session, but let us have a brief overview of what these 6 aspects are. Anukulyasya sankalpaha, accepting whatever is conducive to bhakti. Pratikulyasya varjanam, rejecting whatever is detrimental to bhakti, rejecting whatever is detrimental to devotional service to the Lord, beginning with Shravanam and Kirtanam. Rakshishyatiti vishwaso goptritve varanam tata, conviction that the Lord is one's only protector. This conviction the boy has, who has come, who is Yamaraj himself, who has come in the form of a boy. That boy has this conviction, the faith that the Lord is only one's protector, acceptance of Lord as one's guardian, full self-surrender and humility. Ya ichchayesha srijati idamavyayo ya eva rakshatyavalampate chayaha.
Prabhuji, please, sir. Surrender. Once more.
These are the 6 aspects of surrender. Accepting whatever is conducive to the devotional service of the Lord, rejecting whatever is not conducive to devotional service, conviction or having faith that Lord is the only protector, no other person is the protector, as Yamaraj is saying here. He protected us even when we were in the womb of the mother. Why will he not protect us now?
Prabhu, 3 and 4 are both the same, na Prabhuji?
Can we discuss after the class, Prabhu?
Okay.
We'll take up questions after the class. Okay? Ya ichchayesha srijati idamapyayo य एव रक्षत्यवलम्पते च यः तस्या बलक्रीडनमाहुरीशितः चराचरं निग्रह संग्रहे प्रभु. The boy addressed the woman. Yamaraj is saying to the woman in the form of a boy, O weak women, only by the will of the Supreme Lord, who is never diminished, is the entire world created. Only by his will it is maintained, and only by his will it is again annihilated. This is the verdict of the Vedic knowledge. This material creation consisting of the moving and non-moving is exactly like his plaything. Being the Supreme Lord, he is completely competent to destroy and protect. So he is saying that whatever happens in this material world, it is happening only by the will of the Supreme Lord. This whole world is created by the Supreme Lord. The Srishti, Sthiti, Pralayasa, Dhanushakti Rekha is there in Brahma Samhita. So therefore, this is the verdict of the Vedic knowledge. So this whole material creation, which consists of moving and non-moving objects, is nothing like, it is just a plaything for the Lord. So he is completely competent to protect and destroy it. Just as a child is completely competent to protect his toy or destroy his toy or his plaything, similar way, this whole Brahmanda and the Ananta Koti Brahmanda, millions and millions of Brahmanda, they are all just like playthings in the hands of the Supreme Lord. Patichutam tishtati dishtarakshitam grihe stitam tadvihatam vinashyati jivatyanato pitadikshito vane grihe viguptosya hato na jivati. So Yamaraj is saying, sometimes one loses his money on the public street where everyone can see it. That everyone can see it, and yet his money is protected by destiny and is not seen by others, right? It happens to all of us. We may put a 500 rupee note somewhere on the road, and after some time we come, we see it is safe there. Although everyone is able to see it, it is not seen by others. Thus, a man who lost it gets it back. On the other hand, if the Lord does not give protection, even if the money is very securely maintained in the house, it is lost. If the Supreme Lord gives one protection, even though one has no protector and is in the jungle, one remains alive. Dhruva Maharaj. Whereas a person well protected at home by relatives and others sometimes dies. No one is able to protect him. So many examples are there. Sometimes we lose money, but we are able to find it back. Even though everyone is present, anyone could have taken that money, a big money, but still the money is very safe there. On the other hand, sometimes we may hide the money very safely at home and keep. Still, it is stolen, it is lost. Now, who is actually giving protection here? The protection is given by the Supreme Lord, of course, through the material nature, but through one's karma. If one is destined to lose that money, he will lose, and if one is destined to have that money, he will have. But who is giving this destiny? Who is giving this karma? Karmana daiva netrena, upadrishta anumanta. Supreme Lord is the seer and giver of one's karma. So ultimately, it is the Supreme Lord who is giving. It is giving it through the material nature as per one's karmic reaction. But then ultimately, the Supreme Lord, if he chooses to give protection, then no one can destroy anyone. And if he chooses not to give protection, then even though one may be very, very safe, one is eventually destroyed. Another example is also given. If one has no protector and is in the jungle, one remains alive. Example, Dhruva Maharaj. Whereas a person well protected at home by relatives and others sometimes dies, no one being able to protect him. We would have definitely heard many cases wherein a person was just asleep, and by the time others woke up in the house, he has collapsed. So, who is the ultimate protector? Supreme Lord is the ultimate protector. That is the point here. So, some more examples. There may be a child who is completely dependent on parents, but despite the parents being present, the child is harassed. So, is the parent actually protecting the child? No. And sometimes, even though parents may not be present, the child may be very comfortable. But sometimes, even though the parents may be present, and parents are generally the protectors, but still, even though the parents are present, still the child is harassed by many things. He may get he may get bad dreams, or he may fall ill, he may fall sick, he may injure himself, although both the parents are present here. I am sure all of us must have experienced this. Then what is the role of the parents? Parents have to definitely do their duty. Parents are definitely assigned as the well-wishers and protectors of the child. But they are not the ultimate protectors. They have become a parent by the will of the Supreme Lord. You may call it by karma. Yes, it is by karma. But who has given that karma? Who has assigned a particular soul to be taken care of by another soul? Who has assigned the parent to a particular child? It is the Supreme Lord. Parents are definitely caretakers. Parents are definitely protectors, but they are not the ultimate protectors. So every parent must understand this. In fact, every superior must understand this also. Ultimately, the protection and the shelter is given to the subordinate by the Supreme Lord. We are only instruments. Others are only instruments. So therefore, the ultimate cause of all causes and the ultimate protector is the Supreme Lord. One must have faith in this. Next, in spite of supply of good medicine and an experienced physician, a patient does not survive. We are seeing nowadays, there are so many things like this. So many cases. They get affected by COVID infection, and he may be a rich person. He may be having good facilities to go and get himself admitted in a hospital. He may have the care of many physicians, experienced physicians, but still he does not survive. Why? Who is the ultimate protector? The ultimate protector is the Supreme Lord. Then what is our duty here? So now on one side, Yamaraj is instructing that ultimately only Lord is doing. Then what is our duty? Our duty is to become instruments of the Supreme Lord and completely depend on the free will of the Supreme Lord, on the will of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, since everything is dependent on the free will of the Supreme Lord, our only duty is to surrender unto Him and seek His protection. Of course, we must be dutiful, but we must be dutiful understanding that Supreme Lord is the ultimate protector. Supreme Lord is the ultimate protector. There one more example can be given here. For example, if a person, say for example, I am going out somewhere and I am entrusting my computer or my laptop to another person. So the person can do three things. On one side, the person to whom I have entrusted my laptop can keep the laptop very safely. Right? He can keep the laptop safely in his cupboard or locker. And when I come, he can give it back to me. And the second thing is, the person to whom I have entrusted my laptop, he has kept the laptop very safely. But what he has done? No. Okay. The first situation is if I give my laptop to a particular person and he keeps the laptop safely and gives me back. This is one case. The case two is I give the laptop to him, but he's very careless. He just gives the laptop to his children and they just destroy the laptop completely, using it as a plaything and in a very careless way. And when I come back, I see that it's in a complete chaos. This is a second case. And what is the third case? The third case may be that I give him the laptop. He's protecting the laptop very nicely, but when I go back to him to reclaim my laptop, he is not ready to give it back to me. He has become very attached. So the first case is, one case is he has become very attached to the laptop. He's protecting it nicely, but he has become very attached. The second case is I have given him the laptop. He has become very careless. So this is also not good. To become very attached also is not good, because ultimately the laptop belongs to somebody else. So to become very much attached also is not good, and to claim ownership, that is not good. If I go to him and he says, oh no, please let me keep this laptop. This laptop is mine. Now I really like this laptop very much. Then I will ask him, I just gave it to you for 10 days. Why aren't you returning back to me? So one case is that he can become very attached to the laptop. And what is the next case? He can become very careless in his dealing with the laptop. He may destroy, he may, put it in a very negligent way, and he may end up in destroying the laptop. And when I come back, when I see everything is in a chaos, that is also not the right thing to do. So what is the correct thing to do? To take my laptop, keep it safely in his cupboard or locker, and when I come back, He gives it to me very happily in a safe way, the same condition in which I have given it to him. Similarly, all these children, all these material facilities which we have today, all of them are ultimately given to us by the Supreme Lord. So what happens to some persons? They become very, very attached. They become so attached that, when the time comes, one must be ready to give it back to the Supreme Lord. Oh my Lord, you have given me all these facilities. Thank you. You have given it for my purification. You have entrusted these people, as my subordinates. You have given somebody to me to take care of me. All these persons, all these relationships, ultimately you have only given these persons to me in my life for this life. So when one is leaving one's body, one must be in such a consciousness that now, Lord, the time has come where you want me to come back to you, or you want me to go to another destination. So whatever is there here, you please take it. Because you have just put me as, you have just entrusted them to me. These don't belong to me. And because you have given it to me, I am very responsibly done all my things so far. So this is the right consciousness. But what happens generally in our conditioned situation, in our conditioned nature, we either are very careless towards whatever is given, and mostly we become attached. We don't understand that all these things have actually been given to us by the Supreme Lord for this particular lifetime, for this particular duration, as per our karma. So we think that it all belongs to me. And who am I? We think that we are the body. We have so many misconceptions. So because we think we are the body, we do not understand who is the soul. And in order to understand who is the soul, one must understand who is the super soul, who is the Supreme Lord. So therefore, our duty is to do our duty properly and be completely dependent on the Supreme Lord. Karmanyevariti karaste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phalaheturpur ma testvango swa akarmani. As Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. The next verse. Bhutani taistair nijayoni karmabhir bhavanti kalena bhavanti sarvasaha na tatra hatma prakrita vapistita tasya gunairanyata mohi badhyate. So he's saying here, every conditioned soul receives a different type of body according to his work. And when the engagement is finished, the body is finished. Although the spirit soul is situated in subtle and gross material bodies in different forms of life, he is not bound by them, for he is always understood to be completely different from the manifested body. So here he is saying, the spirit soul, although the spirit soul has got a subtle body, and why he has got that subtle body and gross body? Because of his karma. And why he has been affected by karma? Because he is in the material existence. He is affected by karma. And why is he in the material existence? Because he has become rebellious towards the Supreme Lord. That is why he has been put into this material existence. We have already seen this. So therefore, although the spirit soul is situated in the subtle and gross body, the spirit soul has the subtle body first, subtle body covering, and then which is covered by the gross body. Although it is situated in subtle and gross bodies in different forms of life, he is actually not bound by them. And why it appears that it is bound, he is bound actually? Because of his misconception, it appears that he is bound. Because of his misconception, he is thinking that he is the subtle body. He is thinking that I am my mind, I am my ego, I am my intelligence, I am my body. Because of this misconception, it looks as if he is bound, but actually he is completely different from the manifested body. Then who is he? He is a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, who has an intimate relationship, an intimate loving relationship with the Supreme Lord. Jivera Swarupai Krishnera Nityadas. That is the position of the soul. So there are two more points which we have to discuss. Although the body is obtained and lost, the spirit soul does not actually mix with the body. Now, what can change one's consciousness? What can change one's misconception of identifying oneself with this body? Spiritual education actually changes one's consciousness. Spiritual education actually removes one's misconceptions gradually. Now, what happens when one's consciousness is changed? One carries out the orders of the Supreme Lord, and gradually he becomes freed from the influence of modes of material nature. Mam chayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, 14th chapter. Mam chayo avyabhicharena, one who actually renders unflinching devotional service to me. Mam chayo avyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samatityetan. That person is actually freed of all the influence of the three modes. Sagunan samatityetan brahma bhoyaya kalpate. So therefore, in order to change one's misconception, in order for one to gradually come out, this misconception is there in all of us to some extent or the other. We all should agree with that. So in order to change this misconception, it cannot go in a day. It has to happen gradually. So when one wants to change one's misconception and when one wants to gain one's original consciousness, which is also possible even in this present body, it is definitely possible. Just because we have a material body does not mean that we should have this misconception. Okay, somehow due to the dint of my previous karma, I have got this body. But I have a choice whether I have to have the correct conceptions or not. That choice and free will is always there with me. So therefore, what can actually change one's misconceptions? What can give the correct conceptions? What can actually change one's consciousness? What can make one realize his eternal position and act in that position? It is only spiritual education. So spiritual education about bhakti, which begins with hearing about the Supreme Lord, which we all are been participating for the past many days. The spiritual education actually changes one's consciousness so that one simply becomes an order carrier of the Supreme Lord. Even it is possible, even in the present body. It is definitely possible. And one eventually becomes free from the influence of modes of material nature. Idam shariram purushasya mohajam yata pratigbhautikam griham yatauda kai parthivatai jasairjanaha kale najato vikrito vinashyati. Now he says, just as a householder, although different from the identity of his house, thinks his house to be identical with him. So the conditioned soul, due to ignorance, accepts the body to be himself, although the body is actually different from the soul. The body is obtained through a combination of the portions of earth, water, fire, air, and then the sky. And when the earth, water, and fire are transformed, the body is finished. The soul has nothing to do with this creation and dissolution of the body. The same philosophy which is given in Bhagavad Gita is actually spoken by Yamaraj, who has come in the form of a young boy to the queens of Suvegnya who are mourning. And this in turn is spoken by Hiranyakashipu. Hiranyakashipu is quoting Yamaraj. Right? We have to see where the conversation is. Hiranyakashipu is actually consoling him by telling all these things. The soul has nothing to do with creation and dissolution of the body. So the body is obtained through a combination of portions of the Panchamahabhutas. And what happens when the Panchamahabhutas are there? It is very natural that they are always transformed. For example, if a spirit soul has got a material body because of his karma, okay, he has got a subtle body and he has got a gross body. The nature of the gross body is always transformation only, because it is ultimately made up of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So these keep on transforming. That's why the body keeps on changing. And when the body has changed to such an extent that it is not suitable for the soul to stay there, then again, by the laws of nature, the soul is taken out from that gross body, and through the subtle body, it is carried on to the next destination as per his karma in this life and as per his total karma. So, the body, the gross body being transformed is very natural. But this transformation gives us pain because we identify ourselves with this gross body. Transformation is very natural. A small boy, dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tata dehantara praptir. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, one who has taken dehinosmin yata dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara. So a child, when he takes birth, he passes through all these stages. Tata dehantaram prapti, and when the time comes, he is carried on to another destination. Dhiras tatra namuhyati. Tata dehantaram prapti. Dhiras tatra namuhyati. So a dhira is not bewildered. So all of us have to become dhira. All of us have to become Dhira. And how can we become Dhira? We can become Dhira only by sticking to the process of devotional service, through the process of spiritual education, as we have seen before. The soul has nothing to do with gross and subtle body, actually. The soul is completely aloof. The soul is completely different. But why does it appear that the soul is very intimately connected to the gross and subtle body? It is because of the misidentification of the soul. That is why it appears that the soul is very intimately connected with the gross and subtle bodies. Actually, the gross body is anyway subjected to transformation. It has to be transformed. So a person has to grow, a person has to become old, a person has to die. It is very, very natural. But because the soul is misidentifying himself to be that body, that is why the soul is always grieving. Body is very natural for the body to grow up and at any stage of time die. It is very, very natural. So there is nothing to be, there is nothing to lament about. Because the body is anyway going to die, why should we lament? And because the soul is anyway eternal, even if a person is dead, his soul is eternal, his soul is going to be carried to another destination. So what is the problem? There is nothing to lament here also. Either the body is anyway subjected to transformation. The soul is anyway eternal. So what is the need to lament? But unfortunately, this is the truth, but most of us, we are in the bodily conception of life to some extent or the other. That is why we have to know that this is the ideal understanding, and we should know that gradually we can come to this understanding. It will not happen overnight. Gradually we can come to this understanding. It may take many, many lifetimes. We should be patient, but at least we should be happy that we are in the right path to gradually realize these things. So a very simple analogy. I'm sorry, I think I have to take at least 10-15 minutes more today. I request devotees to be patient, kindly tolerate me. So another analogy is given here. A car made of material elements. So when you purchase a car, it is made of material elements. So what happens? Eventually, the car is subjected to wear and tear. Then what do? Do you grieve for that car, or do you put it in OLX and sell it? We put it in some website and we want to sell the car to someone, right? So similarly, the soul is like the owner of the car. The car is like this material body. So why should the soul be why should it be affected by the transformation of the body? The body is subjected to transformation because it is made of Panchamahabhutas, which are always subjected to transformation. When the car is subjected to transformation, we are not very much, we are not very much affected, or some people may be affected by that also. Yes, the more you are attached to the car, you will be affected. So the more the soul, the spirit soul, that is which is our real identity, the more the spirit soul is attached to the body due to his misconception, the more he is going to suffer. So the suffering is all due to illusion and because of the misconception, which is misidentification of oneself with something which one is actually not. Yatha naloda rushubhinna iyate, yatha nilo deha gata pritakstita, yatha nabas sarvagatam na sajjate, tatha puman sarva gunashraya paraha. As fire, although situated in the wood, is perceived to be different from the wood. As air, although situated within the mouth and the nostrils, is perceived to be separate. And as the sky, yatha nabas sarva gatam sa sajjate, although the sky is all pervading and never mixes with anything, so tatha puman sarva gunashraya para. So the living entity, although it is now encaged within the material body, it is actually separate from it. So Yamaraj is giving this education, this spiritual education about the soul. The soul is actually completely separate from the body. It is only his misconception by which he is identifying himself with the body and suffering. Actually, he is completely separate. Just like fire is present in the wood, but fire is actually completely separate from the wood. It is simultaneously present, but it is also separate from the wood. Although this air is present within the mouth and the nostril, the air is also separate. Air is not the nostril. They both are two separate. It is intimate with the nostril, but it is not the nostril. It is separate from the nostril. And as the sky, the ether is present all over, is present inside our body also, but it is actually different from the body. So the living entity, although it is present within the soul, it is separate from the soul. Suyajño nanvayam sete mudhayam anusochata yashrotayo nuvakteha sanat trishyeta karhichit. So he continued, O lamenters, you are all fools. The person named Suyajña, for whom you lament, is still lying before you and has not gone anywhere. Then what is the cause for your lamentation? Previously, he heard you and replied to you, but now not finding him, you are lamenting. Then this is contradictory behavior, for you have actually never seen the person within the body who you heard and you replied. There is no need for your lamentation, for the body you have seen is here only. Very nice explanation given by Yamaraj. You are saying, you have heard Suyajña, you have heard him speak, you have heard him reciprocate, but where is he? He is lying before you only, right? Then for whom you are lamenting, he is bringing out their knowledge actually. He is actually igniting their knowledge. This knowledge is actually present. So Yamaraj very compassionately, in fact, this knowledge is actually present in all of us. This Krishna consciousness, Srila Prabhupada says, is actually very intrinsic to the soul. But because we are covered by illusion, it is not manifest. Then what is required? Someone should come and ignite that, rekindle that. Then one will actually come slowly to one's original consciousness. So now he is saying, you are not able to find Suyajña. I am saying Suyajña is here only. Then whom are you grieving for? The person Suyajña, have you ever seen him? If you have seen him, he is still here only. Then why are you lamenting for? Then who is the person who actually reciprocated with the queens? Who is the person whom the queens have heard? Who is the person who replied to the queens? It is the spirit soul, Suyajña, who had actually taken shelter in this particular material body. It is not the material body. So he wanted to teach them that the soul is different from the body. Therefore, he is actually telling this statement. There is no need for your lamentation because the body is anyway here. Why are you lamenting? And to the person who you see, who has reciprocated to you, anyway you have never seen him. Now, Yashrotayo nuvakteha. You have never seen him. You are not finding him now. So we should know that although the 8 gross and subtle material energies are stated to be separate from the Lord, they are actually not. Although the Paramatma appears separate from the living being, he is actually separate and not separate simultaneously. How? Now we see, according to the reactions of our karma, according to the reactions of one's karma, the living being appears separate from the Supreme Lord. But actually he is very intimately related with the Supreme Lord. The living being, the soul, he is actually very intimately related with the Supreme Lord. He is a part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mamevamsho Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatanaha. We are all his amshas. All the jivas are the Supreme Lord's amshas, the Supreme Lord's eternal servitors, eternal parts and parcels, just like the children to a father. Manashashtan Indriyani Prakritistani Karshati. And because they have not used their free will properly, because they wanted to enjoy separately, now they are struggling here, and it appears that we are actually not related with the Lord. So according to the reactions of karma, when one is having karmic reaction, when one is affected by karma, one has to take a material body, and when one takes a material body, he is affected by the 3 modes, and when one is affected by the 3 modes, he actually misidentifies himself with the body, and when he misidentifies himself with the body, he does not he does not give attention to his original identity, which is the eternal part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, and therefore he appears to have gone completely away from the Supreme Lord. Only because of the reactions of karma, because he has got a material body, the living being appears to have gone away from the Supreme Lord. But actually, the living being is very intimately connected, very intimately related with the Supreme Lord. Even though now it seems that we have been neglected by the Lord is never neglectful towards us. We may have neglected God, but God is never neglectful towards us. He has created this material manifestation as a result of his kindness. The kindness to the rebellious living entities, so that the rebellious living entities actually understand that this material world is actually not the correct place. This material world is being, this material existence in which I have put into this material body which has been given to me is because I have to rectify myself. My whole lifetime in this material existence is only to understand that I have to rectify myself. And the Lord is very compassionate. He has come in the form of scriptures, in the form of Guru, in the form of Sadhu, in the form of Shastra. So under all circumstances, one must therefore simply depend on the Supreme Lord and revive one's intimate relation with Him, which begins with Bhakti, which in turn begins with Shravanam and Kirtanam. Nashrotanano Vaktyanam Mukhopyatra Mahanasu Yastvendriyavan Atma Sachanya Prana Dehayo. So now he's saying in the body, the most important substance is the prana, that is the life air. But that also is neither the listener nor the speaker. Beyond the life air, the soul also can do nothing, for the super soul is actually the director in cooperation with the individual soul. Super soul is the giver of the karma, upadrishtva anumanta. The super soul conducting the activities of the body is different from the body and the living force. So he is saying the most important substance in the life is what? Prana. The prana is nothing but the vayu. And ultimately, this prana, which is the vayu, is also matter only. Generally, we say, in Telugu it is said like this, pranam poindi, right? But where is that prana? That prana is also material only. That also is subjected to transformation. That prana is also neither the listener nor the speaker. Then who is the listener and the speaker? It is the soul. And who is the supreme listener and the supreme speaker? And the director is the super soul in cooperation with the individual soul. So therefore, the Supreme Lord is actually conducting the activities of the body, is different from the body and the living source. So he is explaining the difference between the soul, the super soul, and the body to the lamenting queens. Bhutendriya manolingan Dehan Uchavachan Vipu Vajatustrijati Hyanyas Tachapi Svena Tejasa. The five material elements, the 10 senses and the mind, all combine to form the various parts of the gross and subtle bodies. The living entity comes in contact with these material bodies, whether high or low, and later gives them up with his personal prowess. This strength can be perceived in a living entity's personal power to possess different types of bodies. So this is one very important point. What is this personal prowess? It is explained here. The personal prowess is, it refers to the living entity's proper use of intelligence, particularly the human form of life. When one properly uses one's intelligence, when one has got this material body, particularly the human form of life, when one uses this intelligence properly to gain proper knowledge and takes to the process of devotional service, then what happens is, this is called personal prowess. Tachapi svena tejasa. What is that tejasa? That tejasa refers to the living entity's proper use of his free will. To gain proper intelligence, to gain proper knowledge and taking to the process of bhakti beginning with Shravanam and Kirtanam. To such a person, the Lord is prepared to give directions by which he can completely come out of this influence of material modes and go back home, back to Godhead. Yavallingan vitohyatma tavat karma nibandhanam tato viparya klesho maya yogo no vartate. So here he says, as long as the spirit soul is covered by the subtle body, consisting of the mind, intelligence, and false ego, he is bound to the results of his fruitive activities. Because of this covering, the spirit soul is connected with the material energy and must accordingly suffer material conditions and reversals, continually, life after life. So as long as our spirit soul is covered by the subtle body, one must actually suffer karma. See here, the subtle body consists of the false ego, mind, and intelligence. What happens during death is, the soul is carried from one body to the other body through the subtle body. So therefore, real death means the death of the subtle body, or one's mind and one's intelligence and one's false ego must actually become purified. Really they must be purified. Then one is actually not subjected to karma. Otherwise, as long as one's intelligence, mind and ego are not purified, then one has to be repeatedly subjected to karma. Vitathabhiniveshoyam yadguneshvarta drikvacha yata manorata swapna sarvam aindriyakam vrisha. He says, it is fruitless to see and talk of the material modes of nature and their resultant so-called happiness and distress as if they were factual. When the mind wanders during the day and a man begins to think himself extremely important, when the mind wanders during the day, a man begins to think himself extremely important. Or when he dreams at night, he sees a beautiful woman enjoying with him. But these two are merely false dreams. Similarly, the happiness and distress caused by the material senses should be understood to be meaningless. Do we give any value to a dream? No. Before the dream comes, we don't even know that we are going to get the dream, firstly. And secondly, even after the dream goes away, even if we have had a terrible dream or any kind of dream, it may be a daydream or any kind of dream, we don't give much importance to that because it may stay there even for half an hour or 1 hour, or sometimes it stays for even more. But immediately when we wake up, we just don't give any importance to the dream. We may be fearful and we may wake up, but ultimately we just forget about the dream also because we don't give any importance to it because it actually does not exist. So this analogy is to say that whatever happiness and distress we are suffering, we are facing in this material world, whatever happiness and distress we are facing because of our karma, it is all meaningless. It is just like a dream because it is very, very temporary. Atanityam anityam va neha sochanti tadvidaha nanyata sakyate kartam svabhava sochatam ihi sochatam iti. Those who have full knowledge of self-realization, who know very well that the spirit soul is eternal, whereas the body is perishable, are not overwhelmed by lamentation. But persons who lack knowledge of self-realization certainly lament. Therefore, it is difficult to educate a person in illusion. Lubdhako vipinekaschet pakshinam nirmitondaka vitatyajalam vidate tatra tatra pralobhayan. So again, Yamaraj is telling one more story actually. This is a story about one hunter who lured many birds with food and captured those birds after spreading a net. So the hunter lived as if he is appointed by death personified as the killer of the birds. So what happened is he was in a mission to, his duty was to capture the birds, or he was going to capture the birds, and for that he had to lure them with food. And what happened here? Kulingamitunam tatra vicharat samdrishyata tayo kulingi sahasa lubdakena pralobhita. So while wandering in the forest, what happened? The hunter saw a pair of kulinga birds. Of the two, the female was captivated by the hunter's food. Whatever the food has been put, the female bird, the male and the female were there, and the female was captivated by the hunter's food. Sasajjata si chastantriam mahishya kalayantrita kulingastam tatapannam nirikshya brishadukkhita snehat akalpa kripana kripanam paryadevata paryadevayat. O queens of Swegnya, Yamaraj is saying, the male Kulinga bird, seeing his wife put into greatest danger in the grip of providence, became very unhappy. Because of affection, the poor bird being unable to release her, he began to lament for his wife. The female bird is attracted, but the male bird is able to understand, but he is not able to do anything except lamenting. Aho akaruna deva striya karunaya vibhu kripanam mam anusochantya dinaya kim karishyati. So he's saying, alas, how merciful is providence. How merciless is providence. My wife, unable to be helped by anyone, is in such an awkward position and lamenting for me. What will providence gain by taking away this poor bird? What will be the profit? He's saying how merciless is providence, the Supreme Lord. Kamam nayatu mam deva kimarthenatmano hime dinena jivata dukkham anena vidurayusa. So he's saying, if the unkind providence takes away my wife, who is half my body, why should he not take me also? What is the use of my living with half of my body, bereaved by the loss of my wife? What shall I gain in this way? He is completely attached to his body. We are able to see he's a bird. He is attached to his body, and therefore he is identifying himself with the body, although he is the spirit soul. And because he is identifying himself with the body, he is attached to the body. And because of this misconception, and because of him being attached to the body, he is attached to the female bird, who is actually his relation or his wife. What shall I gain in this way? He is lamenting. He is saying, Katam tvajata pakshamstam matrihinan bibibraham mandabhagya pratikshante nide me mataram praja. Now he is saying, the unfortunate baby birds, bereft of their mother, are waiting in the nest for her to feed them. They are still very, very small and have not yet grown their wings. How shall I be able to maintain them? It's a very genuine feeling, but unfortunately, the bird is in illusion. But still, as a father, he is in a very genuine feeling. When the mother passes away with small children, the father is very much bereaved. Not only in the human species of life, this kind of bereavement, this kind of grief, this kind of mourning is there even in the animal species. So therefore, one must understand that if the Supreme Lord protects one, even though one may be motherless and fatherless, one can be maintained by the goodwill of the Lord, because ultimately only God is giving mother and father to a particular person. Only God is giving the child only the God is giving a particular child. Karmana devanetre na. Under Lord superintendence, one soul becomes the child of a particular mother and father. Ultimately, everything is being done by the Supreme Lord. So therefore, even though one may be motherless and fatherless, one can be maintained by the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, if the Supreme Lord does not give one protection, one must suffer in spite of the presence of his mother and father. See, for the example, the same birds. If the Supreme Lord gives them protection, even if the father Kulinga bird is dead, definitely they will somehow or the other survive. Some other bird may come and take care of them. Somehow or the other they may survive. And then fathers and mothers have protecting feelings for their children, not only in human society, even in the bird and beast society. However, Kali Yuga is so degraded that a father and mother even kill their children in the womb on the plea of their scientific knowledge. This is what Srila Prabhupada is writing in his purport, that within the womb the child has no life. With all their knowledge and advancement, are the scientists able to create even a single egg, even one single life? They are not able to create. But they say that the child which has been conceived in the womb of the mother, they say that in the womb the child has no life. So therefore, abortion can be permitted. Can they even create a life? They cannot create a life, but they are expert in destroying the life. So one must understand that ultimate protection is given by the Supreme Lord. All the other relationships are just instrumental in giving Lord's protection. They may be instruments for some time, after some time they may not be there. But who is the eternal well-wisher, eternal protector? Bhoktaram Yajnatapasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, Suhridam Sarvabhutana. Who is the eternal well-wisher? Suhridam. He is the eternal well-wisher, Supreme Lord. Evam, we are completing soon. Evam Kulingam Vilapantamarat Priya Viyogatura Mashru Kantham Sayevatam Sa Kunika Sarena Vivyadakala Prati Prahito Vilinaha. So because of the loss of his wife, the Kulinga were lamented with tears in his eyes, and meanwhile, following the dictations of mature time, the hunter who had very carefully hidden, he released his arrow, which pierced the body of this Kulinga bird and killed him too. Evam yoyam apashyantya atma payam abuddhaya nainam prapsyata sochantya patim varsha sateirapi. So thus Yamaraj, in the guise of a small boy, told all the queens, you are all so foolish that you lament, but you do not see your own death. Afflicted by a poor fund of knowledge, you do not know that even if you lament for your dead husband, for hundreds of years, you will never get him back, and in the meantime, you will all be dead. Sri Hiranyakashipurvacha Bala evam pravadati sarve vishmita chetasaha Nyatayo menire sarvam anityam ayatottitham. So, when Hiranyakashipu is saying all this, we will come back to the discussion. While Yamaraj in the form of a small boy was instructing all the relatives surrounding the dead body of Suyagnya, everyone was struck with wonder by the child. Yamaraj was taken the form of a child. By his philosophical words, everyone was struck with wonder. They could understand that everything material is temporary and it doesn't continue to exist. Yama etad upakhyaya tatraivantaradhiyata Nyatayo hisu yajñasya chakruryat samparayikam. So after instructing all the foolish relatives of Suyagnya, Yamaraj in the form of a boy disappeared from their vision. Then the relatives of Suyagnya performed the ritualistic ceremonies. Atasochata mayuyam param chatmanameva va ka atma kaparo vatra sviya parak Evava Swaparabhiniveshena Vina Jnanena Dehina. So therefore, none of you should be aggrieved for the loss of the body, whether your own or those of others. Only in ignorance one makes bodily distinctions, thinking, who am I, who are others, what is mine, what is for others. All this Hiranyakashipu is saying. He is a very learned demon, which we have seen yesterday. So therefore, Sri Narada Uvacha Iti daitya patervakyam ditir akranya sashnusha putra shokam kshanatyaktva tatve chittam adharayat. So Diti, the mother of Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, heard these instructions from Hiranyakashipu, and along with her daughter-in-law Rushabhanu, Hiranyaksha's wife, she forgot her grief over her son's death and thus engaged her mind and attention in understanding the real philosophy of life. Om Tat Sat, Sri Krishna Arpanamastu. Apologies.
58 before slide, points, questions 58, 59, in between slide. You have skipped it.
Yeah.
That is important.
I skipped it purposely because it's already time. But anyway, because you have asked.
Please show Prabhu once.
Okay. So, one very interesting question and answer is there. Once Yamaraj asked to Yudhishthira Maharaj, what is the most wonderful thing within this world? It is mentioned in the Mahabharata actually. Then Yamaraj actually comes in the form of a yaksha. And he asks these questions to Yudhishthira Maharaj. So Yudhishthira Maharaj says like this. What does he say? Hundreds and thousands of living entities meet death at every moment. But a foolish living being thinks himself deathless and does not prepare for death. And everyone has to die. So this is the most surprising thing, that although we are seeing so many people are dying at every moment, but somehow we are convinced that this death is not coming to me. Am I right?
Correct.
Yes. Everyone, we are seeing our relatives dying, we are seeing our friends dying, and nowadays, every other day I am hearing some death news. But still, the illusion is so strong in a conditioned living being that he thinks that this is not going to affect me. This is the strong illusion which is present in each and every one of us, the more we are in a conditioned state. So therefore, everyone has to die ultimately, and because everyone is under the control of material nature. Yet everyone thinks that he is independent. He thinks he can do whatever he likes. He thinks that he will never meet death. He thinks that he is forever. This is a great illusion. So this is one question. I purposely skipped it because it's already time. I think, yeah, almost half an hour more we have taken. I think we can close for today. I thank each and every one of you for taking your time to attend this session. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.